Heavenly Father, we want to give you thanks tonight that once again we just are here with people who love you, who love your word and want to learn more about it. And Lord, we're here with people tonight who even know us and they still love us too. So we want to give you thanks that we can be here together. And as we study your word, I pray that you'll speak to our hearts tonight. Show us where we are at in our lives personally and as a nation. And then, Lord, show us where we need to go and where we can put our trust. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, once again, this is a shorter chapter in Jeremiah 40. And yet, as I read it, the things I was seeing in there, it's like, oh my gosh, we are living in Jeremiah times once again. So some pretty cool stuff's going to come out here. First, though, some historical studies. Basically, it's just a refresher from Jeremiah 39. Jeremiah chapter 39, things happen in rapid-fire succession. So I just wanted to do a recap because it'll put us right here to the first verse of Jeremiah 40. So under historical studies, I wrote in chapter 39, the fortified capital city of Jerusalem has fallen to the Babylonians. Nebuchadnezzar's chief officers have set up their new government. Remember where they set up their new government? In the gates of the city. That's where government business was conducted. King Zedekiah fled the city, but was captured. He saw his sons executed right before his eyes were put out. So Nebuchadnezzar made sure that's the last thing he ever saw. And at the order of King Nebuchadnezzar, the prophet Jeremiah was searched for and released from Zedekiah's prison. So even King Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon and then out in the field with his army knew who Jeremiah was. And the whole land is now under Babylonian occupation and control a second time. Okay, so for instance, a lot of our dads, or maybe some of us even here, know of people who served in Germany after World War II in the army of what? Occupation. That's the army my dad was in, occupying a defeated nation. And so anyway, that's where we're at now with Babylon and Israel, all right? The army of occupation. So let's take a look at Jeremiah chapter 40. The first 6 verses, Jeremiah is free to go. With the city of Jerusalem mostly destroyed, the prophet Jeremiah is accorded a tremendous blessing, immediately by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, but ultimately in keeping with God's earlier promise that he would be protected. So here's verse 1 now. The word came to Jeremiah from the Lord after Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, had released him at Ramah. He had found Jeremiah bound in chains among all the captives from Jerusalem and Judah who were being carried into exile to Babylon. So you can just picture a whole crowd of prisoners. Jeremiah was found in the prison, but he was in chains, and all the population is being put in chains and let out. Okay. When the commander of the guard found Jeremiah, he said to him, "The Lord your God decreed this disaster for this place, and now the Lord has brought it about. He has done just as he said he would. All this happened because you people sinned against the Lord and did not obey him." I've got to stop right here. I didn't think of this discussion question, so I'm going to ask it right now. Where do you think this captain of the guard in the Babylonian army, where do you think he got that information from? Whose preaching had he heard about? Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah's message, and now in hindsight, the captain of the Babylonian guard, of Nebuchadnezzar's personal guard, is giving it back to him. So this is all the warnings that he'd been giving the people of Israel and Judah for so long, and he said, you know, the Lord your God decreed this disaster for this place. And Jeremiah is probably sitting there going, well, duh, I told you so. The word has gotten out, not only in the city of Jerusalem and its inhabitants, it's reached the ears of those in the Babylonian army, what God was saying.
He must have been so excited to think that someone finally listened.
Yes, somebody finally listened. Yeah, and guess who it was? It was the army that God had ordained to punish his people and bring judgment on them. Let's continue on, verse 4. But today I am freeing you from the chains on your wrists. Come with me to Babylon, if you like, and I will look after you. But if you do not want to, then don't come. Look, the whole country lies before you. Go wherever you please. However, before Jeremiah turned to go, Nebuzaradan added, "Go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon has appointed over the towns of Judah, and live with him among the people, or go anywhere else you please." Then the commander gave him provisions and a present and let him go. So Jeremiah went to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mizpah, and stayed with him among the people who were left behind in the land. Let's look at our first set of discussion questions. I wanted to open up with what kinds of things does freedom mean to you today? What does it mean to be free or to have freedom?
Well, I think that knowing the Lord makes me have freedom.
Okay, free to know the Lord and also to worship Him, certainly. Yeah, I just tried doing it in Afghanistan today and see how that flies for you. All right, they are not free there, but the people are still doing it at the cost of their lives. What else is freedom?
Free to live where we want to.
Okay, we get to choose where we want to, don't we? All right, and if we can't afford to go there, we can work, save up, and plan a move. But nobody's stopping us from going where we want to. Okay?
You can go where you want as long as the government knows.
Okay, we can travel where we want to, although that's being threatened right now with vaccine passports, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta know whether the government know where you are.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this before, but don't forget all those scanners that you will see on the various interstates. There aren't any on Interstate 86, but I've seen them going through Ohio, and they're on the thruway right now, and they can recognize your plate, and they also take your picture, and don't think for a minute they won't be hooked up to a vaccine passport registry. And that's when the highway patrol will show up. But right now we're free to go as we want, but that's being threatened. What else?
Speech.
Okay, freedom to say what we want. And by the way, that's under attack. What's that, Terry?
Kind of.
Yeah, we kind of have it. Yeah, your speech is supported as long as you agree with the narrative one side of the struggle wants us to have. But
We had the right, the freedom to criticize the government.
okay, freedom to criticize the government. And one I'll give you right now, our Bill of Rights gives us the right to petition our government and make our grievances known. Well, that went away on January 6th. We are not able to petition our government and make our grievances known now. Okay?
Fox News, of course, which they glorified the news to think that people want to watch it. But they said this morning that some parents went into a school meeting and they got the FBI.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
School.
Yeah, they're getting involved with your school boards now. You can't go argue with a school board about what you're being taught. So keep going. What does freedom mean to us today? But you can see it's under attack. We are losing our freedoms. There's some good news at the end, by the way, in this Bible study.
Freedom wasn't free.
Okay, freedom isn't free in the first place, but we have the freedom to fight for it or not, don't we? Although our government's trying to take that away from us, that we can't fight for it.
I don't know we've got much anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm one way or the other, take away.
I would also say freedom means the ability to choose what you're going to put inside your body. Right? And some of us here have chosen, for instance, the hot topic of vaccines. Some of us have chosen not to. To me, that's less important than whether or not we get to choose what we're going to do for our own health care. That's the real boiling point.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so. The first thing I thought about was peace.
Okay. Freedom to have peace.
It gives me peace knowing that we're not, well, we are, but in my little home up there, you know, I'm peaceful. There's nothing yet to harm me.
Okay,
There's
so
nothing pressing on me.
So in that instance, freedom also means the ability to have our own homes and the security of our homes and the ability to say who comes and who goes and what kind of a home life we're going to have.
So far.
Yeah, so far. Yeah. Okay.
We had the freedom to bury our heads in the sand.
Yeah, we do. We have the freedom to ignore everything and go la la la, whatever. Yeah, we do.
Somebody else is hopeful.
Yeah.
Freedom of what kind of job we want.
Okay, the freedom to choose what kind of job we're going to go, what kind of dreams we're going to pursue, right? And by the way, we're quickly moving to a system that they have in China where based upon your social score, your children can go to school or not go to school and qualify for certain tiers of employment versus not. But right now, we still get to choose what kind of job we're going to have. Right, Dale? Sort of?
Your children, you get to choose where your children go to school or not, but you also don't get the choice of how many kids you're gonna have.
Yeah, that's true. Now they're getting ready. We're free to have as many children as we want, but I think it's in the state of Pennsylvania. They've introduced legislation that after a man has fathered 3 children, he's to be sterilized or face a $10,000 fine. It's on the state legislature in Pennsylvania. They want to limit the number of children a man can father. You know what I think that might be connected to? We got to get back here. But all I'm going to say is, when you have child support declared against you, if you have 1 child, it's 18%. If it's 2 children, they take 24% of your income, I think it is. 3 children, 30%, and it doesn't go up any higher if you have a 4th or 5th child. Bingo. It's part of it's tied to your social welfare system. Okay? That's probably why they want to limit this to 3.
You don't think it's the population thing?
Oh, it could be, but I'm just saying, why are they going after dads can't father more than 3 kids as opposed to women? Shouldn't it be that a woman can't have more than 3 children?
I didn't think so.
See?
Just the men.
Yeah, but it's generally not women that pay child support, it's men. So whatever, that's just a theory, but we need to keep going. So we've just talked about freedom and what it means, and every single freedom we can think, by the way, is under attack, all right? Just shelve that for a minute, okay? Now, in verse 1 of this chapter, under what conditions did Nebuzaradan find Jeremiah, and what was happening to everyone around the prophet? What were his conditions and what was happening to everybody else?
He was in captivity and they were leading him off to Babylon.
Okay, everybody's in chains. They are in captivity. They're being marched out of the city on the way to Babylon by crowds and columns and groups. All right, and by the way, they're going to be enslaved. Okay, and of course we know Jeremiah was in chains because the captain of the guard said, "I'm going to take these chains from your wrists." So he was in chains right then. All right. Now, in verses 2 and 3. What reason does the commander of the guard give for the Babylonian victory over the kingdom of Judah?
Their sin.
Yep, sins of the nation. All right, and the fact that they sinned and did not obey. Okay, did not obey. So the commander of the Babylonian guard here basically is saying, we won because you disobeyed God. All right. Now, so that's the reasoning, and it's the truth of how the Babylonians gained victory over the kingdom of Judah. But how is the commander's observation not accurate of the prophet Jeremiah? Does it apply to him? He said, the Lord has done just as he said he would. All this happened because you people sinned against the Lord and did not obey him.
Was he telling Jeremiah this too? Was he including Jeremiah?
He was speaking in general terms, yeah. But does that apply to Jeremiah? No, Jeremiah is a standout. He has always stood for God's word. He's always worshiped God. He's always obeyed God, even when it cost him. So, the commander's observation is not accurate of the prophet. And what does Nebuzaradan do next, right after he's declared that? Set him free. Yeah, I'm going to take these chains off your wrists, all right? And after the chains fall off, can you imagine the key coming out, Jeremiah holding his hands out? And by the way, these are not light little handcuffs. I'm picturing something the equivalent, because each link had to be hand forged in those days. So I'm picturing something at least as heavy as light log chain, okay? And iron bands, all right? And after those things dropped off his wrist, can you hear the chains hitting the ground? And can you just see Jeremiah rubbing his wrists and just feeling the weight gone, all right? Well, then Nebuzaradan gives Jeremiah options. After he drops those chains, what options does he give him? Yeah. 1, come to Babylon with me. Nebuzaradan values Jeremiah and sees the value of having a man like him. And if Jeremiah chooses to go to Babylon, what does Nebuzaradan promise to do for him? Yeah, I'm going to look after you. All right? He says, but if you don't want to, then don't. The whole country lies before you. So I put it in bold print twice. Go wherever you please. And then, as Jeremiah starts to go away, he said, go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon has appointed over the towns of Judah, and live with him among the people. See, he knows Jeremiah might want to still be an influencer. Now, I don't know about you, but every place I've ever worked, I've never wanted to be the top dog. But I've always wanted to have the top dog's ear. I've always wanted to be an influencer. And Jeremiah has been an influencer to 4 different kings now. He's been an advisor. He's been a challenger. He's gotten himself in trouble with them. But he has never let off. So he says, or you could, he's letting Jeremiah know who's being appointed governor to rule after the Babylonian army pulls out. Okay, by the way, another puppet ruler. Okay. And then, though, he says you can go over there and live. Or, once again, go where? Anywhere else you please. So, Jeremiah is being given every single option to go wherever he wants. It's all up to him. So, in a single word, what would you say Jeremiah is being given? Freedom. Freedom. What has been taken away from everyone else? Freedom. They are all enslaved. They are all in chains. And Jeremiah has been picked out of the crowd. His chains are off. He's been given his freedom. And aside from his freedom, what else does the commander give Jeremiah? Actually, some physical things. He gave him provisions and a gift. So you see, everybody else has lost everything they have. Jeremiah is standing there with nothing, but he's been given his freedom, and then suddenly he's been given provisions. So he's probably been given food rations, right? Maybe a wineskin of wine or water, and he's been given a gift, whatever that is, something of value. We don't have the details. Could have been a little sack of gold or silver. Who knows? Who knows? But Jeremiah has been set up, hasn't he? Not in a negative way. I mean, set up to go and be free and go wherever he wants. So what seems ironic about people who are unwilling to obey God versus people who submit themselves to God? Well, first of all, why are so many people today unwilling to submit themselves to God and his commandments? Because they don't want to lose their what? Their freedom. They think, oh, I don't want to give up my fun. I don't know about you, but when I pursued my kind of fun, it ended in ruin for me when it was outside of God. And then what's ironic about those of us who submit to God? We have more freedom than anybody else. We do. We're blessed. We're safe. We're secure. Yeah. Yeah.
Doug and I were talking about that, how much what we have to look forward to, like on Wednesday nights and on
Mhm.
Sundays.
Oh, yeah.
The joy, the joy that we have, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. These are the highlights of my week,
To
too.
come and to be
Yeah.
with your Jewish family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, does somebody want to look up James 1, verse 25? Whoever gets there first, just read it, and this is the question. How does this illustrate God's promise in James 1:25?
But whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continue up therein, he be not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the word, this man shall be blessed in his deed.
Okay. So God's law is actually a law of liberty. God's law is a law of liberty. And when we look into it and do what it says, we're going to be blessed. That's real freedom and blessing. Jeremiah has experienced this. Just contrast what has happening to everybody in his city. They have lost everything and they've been let out in chains. Jeremiah's chains have been dropped. He's been blessed with provisions and a gift and told, you can go anywhere you want. You can come back to Babylon with me. I mean, after all, we are the winners here. And you can live well with us. Or you can stay in this land that we pretty much destroyed, depopulated, the best of the people taken away, right? Or killed. But he says, you can go anywhere you want. That is freedom. All right? But freedom doesn't come from doing whatever we want. Freedom comes from obeying God. All right, second paragraph now, verses 7 through 10. I called it Survivors Settle into Occupation. Think back now in our relatively recent history, but when we had the Army of Occupation in Germany, U.S. soldiers and Allied soldiers settled down all over Germany, and the German people were getting back to life, and they lived under military rule. But they started rebuilding their lives, didn't they? You know, they started getting used to peace and stability once again. They had to do some things differently as required. But life started picking up again, all right? So now you've got this Army of Occupation, and the people are going to start settling into life there. So let's see what happened. When all the army officers and their men who were still in the open country heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, as governor over the land, and had put him in charge of the men, women, and children who were the poorest in the land, and who had not been carried into exile to Babylon, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. And then there's a list here. Some of you asked me, how do I know how to pronounce these? I don't. So let's take a stab at this list real quick. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan and Jonathan, the sons of Kareah, Sariah, son of Tanhumeth, the sons of Ephi, the Netophathite, and Jaazaniah, the son of Maacathite, and their men. How's that? All right. Wild guesses, okay? Well, listen. Start again with verse 9. Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, and the son of Shaphan, took an oath to reassure them and their men, "Do not be afraid to serve the Babylonians," he said. "Settle down in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well with you. I myself will stay at Mizpah to represent you before the Babylonians who come to us. But you are to harvest the wine, the summer fruit, the olive oil, and put them in your storage jars, and live in the towns that you have taken over." By the way, if Gedaliah has been appointed governor of what's left of Judah, why doesn't he set up housekeeping in Jerusalem and kind of have people to come to him there?
It's all burnt down.
Because it's burned down and destroyed. So he's moved away from Jerusalem. He's more out in a smaller town. Maybe it's a smaller city, but it's Mizpah, all right? There's no sense in trying to set up housekeeping in Jerusalem. It's been destroyed, all right? And by the way, you'll notice that previous to this, Nebuchadnezzar, when he wiped out Jerusalem the first time and during the first exile, he set up Zedekiah as king, right? He's still king in the capital city of Jerusalem, but he's a puppet king. Well, since the puppet king tried to rebel against him with the nation of Egypt, now what did he put in place? There's no kings here, just a what? A governor. And you don't have a capital city to rule from. You're out in Mizpah now, all right? So he's really knocked down the person he's left in charge. But make no mistake, this is a puppet governor now, and he is to get the people to start producing for whose kingdom? Babylon. They will be sending food and produce to feed the armies of Babylon as they continue their conquests. Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at our discussion questions for this paragraph. Number 2. Historically, when communists or socialists take over a country, what do they do with the land and homes that belong to the people who oppose them?
Take them over.
What's that?
Take them over.
They take them over, right?
Set up camps.
Set up camps, yeah. But oftentimes the people who own land and homes are also people who have used a capitalistic system, if you will. They have earned what they have. They own things. And so who can you always get to resent? Those who have.
Those that don't have.
Those who don't have or who have less. And by the way, there's a constant game being played with us in the United States. $3.5 trillion spending package that our government's trying to pitch right now and get through Congress. And how much is it supposed to cost the average taxpayer? Nothing. It'll cost nothing. Because we're being promised the rich will pay for it. Well, Well, I got, okay, somebody just asked who's rich. I guarantee you there are other people in this country who would look at us around this table with what we have, and they'd say, you're rich. Meanwhile, you and I are looking around at other people, and we're saying, no, 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 they're rich. And I guarantee you, whoever we know that we could point to, those people would point and say, are you kidding me? Those people are rich. See, it's all a facade. It really is. All right?
We're
So-
the rich, we're the rich, and then there's the super rich, and they don't have cable.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is this, though. Socialism and communism works based upon class warfare and resentment. And you can always get people to resent somebody who has more than you, which means everybody can resent somebody, right? And so we don't care as long as somebody else has to pay. But what really happens is we all pay. And I don't just mean in taxes, I mean in property. And so when communists and socialists take over a nation, they will take the homes and the land away from those who have it, and they will give it to someone else. All right? So that's what happens every time there's a takeover. All right? Now, just hold that thought, because we're going to see Nebuchadnezzar do something very similar, and there's a very, very controlling reason why they do that. It's insidious, but you'll see it in communism and socialism. You'll see what Nebuchadnezzar does here. Okay? Who did King Nebuchadnezzar appoint as governor over Judah, first of all? Gedaliah. And who did he appoint Gedaliah over? Who did he put him in charge of?
Emmanuel, women and children.
Yeah, but which ones? The poorest in the land. All right, the poorest in the land. Probably because where were the people above them and above them and above them? Yep, they'd been taken to Babylon. So you've got all these people that are gone. It's been depopulated. And the Babylonians have just left a certain group of people that never really had much of anything. They were poorer people, okay? So in verse 8, what did all of the people start to do when they heard the news that Gedaliah was now governor? They started coming from where? All over the place. All over the place. And we had that long list, okay? But they started coming from everywhere. In fact, in the next paragraph, we're going to see it too, okay? So they start coming in from all over because a nation has been defeated. It's been largely depopulated. And the poorest in the land are left, and somebody's been put in charge of them, okay? Now, in verses 9 and 10, what commitment did Gedaliah make to the poor people who gathered to him?
If they served the Babylonians, they would get reward.
Yeah. I underlined it there. He took an oath reassuring everybody, do not be afraid to serve the Babylonians, which means he's in charge, but whose representative is he? Babylon's. And he said, settle down in the land, serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well with you. And I myself will stay here at Mizpah to represent you. Why? Well, because it was still standing. Before the Babylonians who come to us. So he's going to be their representative. Everybody is terrified of the Babylonians. So if they've got somebody that's been appointed to deal with the Babylonians for them, boy, we want to get close to this guy, don't we? Okay, he'll be our negotiator. He'll be our protector. He stands between us and the king of Babylon because we don't want them coming back here and sending their armies back. Okay. Now, and the last part of that, what were the poor people commanded to do? It's in bold print. You're to harvest the wine, summer fruit, olive oil, and put them where?
In your storage jars.
And live in your towns that you what? Have taken over. So were these people living in their own houses? They were living in somebody else's house. Were these people taking over their own land? It was somebody else's land. The people who owned it have been taken away.
It's almost like what's going on right now.
Why, sure, what it's going to lead up to.
Yeah.
Sure it is, Carol. Yeah. Now, don't steal the conclusion of my Bible study here. But yeah, that's what we're moving towards.
Right now.
That's what has happened in every nation that has been taken over by communists and socialists. And don't think for a second it's not going on here.
You know, I mean, look
All right.
what's happening.
Yeah. Okay, so So that's what they're commanded to do. And why do you think the poor people remaining were given these kind of orders? Because they're working for who now? They're working for the conquerors, the ones who have defeated their nation. All right? But also they were told to move in on land they didn't own and move into houses that belong to somebody else, but they're there now. Theirs now. Why do you think these people were given their orders? What happens when you take that group of people and give them everybody else's stuff?
They won't fight against you.
Sure, they've been rewarded. Why would we ever go against our rulers when they gave us all this stuff that we didn't work for, that we didn't build, and now whose is it? Well, they think it's theirs, but is it really? Oh, just don't produce what you're supposed to do and you'll find out how much is yours. Just like don't pay your property taxes in America and you'll find out who owns the land your house sits on. All right? Now, so to close out this paragraph, how are liberal socialist Democrats doing the very same thing today that Nebuchadnezzar had Gedaliah do now to the occupied Judah? How's it being done to us today in our country?
Letting the immigrants come in and take over.
Okay, bringing in all kinds of immigrant people, and it's not that we don't allow immigration, but these people are coming in how? Illegally, and then once they get here, what are they given? Everything. For instance, how many of us here had to pay for our last dentist visit? All right, they get free dental care, they're getting all their medical care, they're getting their food, they're getting their housing, they're allowed to tap into the social welfare system here. All right, okay, so bingo, Jim, that's a good one. And by the way, the people that are doing it, who do they expect these people are going to get behind and support? Them. Yeah. No, but I'm serious. That's part of what's going on in our nation today. All right? It is. It's a move that's being done to change the population of the country to get allegiance and loyalty. All right? So come up with another one. These should be quick and easy. How about, and I forgot the other part of it. Who's paying for it? We are. Okay, now let's go with the moratorium on paying rent. Right? Who got this going and extended it so you don't have to pay rent in America today? Yeah? Well, the one in power, right? And then who winds up absorbing the cost of that? The people who own the property. Are they ever going to get their money back? No dice. They're not. So who will everybody who doesn't have to pay their rent be loyal to? The people who wrote that law, right? How about our college students that are struggling because they can't pay off educational debt because they went to a school that taught them absolute crap that won't help them make a living? So what's our current president talking about doing? Forgiving everybody's college debt, right? Well, what's the problem? Is it the debt or the fact that they bought an education that won't produce any good income, right? But who's going to pay for that? Us. And who will all these college students support? The people that are taking over our country. They are. They will, okay? So you can see the pattern here, and this is exactly what Nebuchadnezzar did. I hope you can see it. Only what's happening here is this. It's being done to take over our country. Nebuchadnezzar did it after he defeated the nation of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. It's just putting a cart before the horse, but it's for the same purpose and the same effect. Mark my words. All right. Do you think we're getting political or are we being current? Okay. Let's take a look at our next paragraph. Verses 11 and 12. I titled it, "The Poor Take a Rich Harvest." When all the Jews in Moab, now you've got to, if you're familiar with your Bible maps, if not, whip back to the back of your Bible, because you got the kingdom of Israel, all right, and the kingdom of Israel largely runs in a narrow strip north and south. So now look to the west, look to the east. If you go west, you're going to be in the ocean. Look to the mountain range to the right side of your map, which would be going east, and then go south, and see if you can pick out some of these names. When all the Jews in Moab, Ammon, Edom, and all the other countries heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant in Judah and had appointed Gedaliah, son of Hakiam, the son of Shaphan, as governor over them. And by the way, they didn't only hear that, they also heard what was going on in the land now. They all came back to the land of Judah, to Gedaliah at Mizpah, from all the countries where they had been scattered, and they harvested an abundance of wine and summer fruit. Okay? Third set of questions. I want us to use our imaginations for a minute. Imagine an America that has been completely defeated by a military power. Okay? Our strength is broken. All right? Who do you think will start moving in and why?
All the people who wanted to be here before.
All the people that wanted to be here before. Yeah? And when they come, what do you think they'll be looking for?
All the good stuff that we're supposed to have.
All the good stuff that we no longer control because many of us have been killed off, perhaps carted off, or put in concentrated camps, if you will. So they'll be coming for land. This is a big, big land. They'll be coming for houses. And they'll be coming for the richness that this land has to offer. Okay? That's what they would be coming here for. All right? Now, when people started to hear the news from Judah that was coming out of Judah, what did they start doing from all the nations around? They started filtering in. All right? And it wasn't because they heard Gedaliah has been appointed governor of what's left of Judah. They didn't go, oh, Gedaliah, we can't wait to go live near him. It was the fact that the order went out, move into the houses, take over the land, and harvest the crops. They were coming in to be producers or takers. Takers, initially. Everybody thinks they're going to get something, but in the end, what do they wind up being? Producers. Yep, slaves, producers. They might get to stay on the land, but they're working for somebody else. Okay? Now, why do you think they wanted to come to a ruined and defeated country? I mean, stop and think about it. It's been ravaged by warfare. You know, cities are kind of broken down. Countryside's still probably pretty good. Why would you want to come to a ruined and defeated country?
Start over.
To start over? What?
Start over.
Yeah. Yep, to start over. It's a place to start with. It's almost a free-for-all.
Even ruined, it was still better than what they had.
Even ruined, it's still better than a lot of what people had and where they come from. Let's face it, even in a lot of the nations today, people are coming because they live in very, very, very terrible, poor conditions. All right?
Same reason looters move in after a flood.
Yeah, looters. Yep, looters will move through a devastated area. I was told during Hurricane Katrina, I knew some people that went down there as part of the Red Cross. And, you know, you think the Red Cross is there to distribute food and medicine and water and generators and help people. But the Red Cross workers could not move around New Orleans without police escorts. And at night, nobody dared to go outside because of the looting that was going on. And he said what the media will never show you is how that American city, that great American city, just devolved into complete lawlessness. He said the media never showed it. The government didn't want it to get it out. But he said it was like in a third world country. And people would shoot you for whatever you had. They were going through people's homes and people were shooting each other, trying to protect what they... He said it was just absolute crazy. And he said America never heard about it. But he said, I saw it with my own eyes. He said, I couldn't go anywhere unless it was daytime. And then in the daytime, we had to have police. Okay? So, same thing. They went in to loot those homes. You nailed that, Dale. Yep. They were looking for whatever might have been left behind. Okay? All right. Now, why do you think they were able to take such an abundant harvest? They took an abundance. What's that?
Nobody else was there to do it.
Nobody else was there to do it, but more importantly, somebody else had already planted it, didn't they? Somebody else had sowed that seed, they'd plowed that ground, they'd planted those vineyards, they'd built walls around it to keep critters out, they'd prune them. They harvested an abundant harvest. And they were the latecomers.
they get to keep it.
That's the part we don't get. See, they're told, put it in your store jars, store it up. Yeah, for who? Because we'll be around. Okay? Now, in America today, and we can do some repetitive ideas here, but what are some groups of people being promised today at someone else's expense? Today, what are people being promised at someone else's expense?
Poor, no, aren't
Yeah, it could be poor, could be what? Rich?
Reparations.
Okay, reparations payments. They want to take people of African American descent and give them money because they were put in slavery. Although I think the nation of Africa should have to pay for that because they're the one that caught them in the first place. No, I'm serious. Slavery started in Africa. It's been going on for centuries before it ever came to Europe. But what else? Reparations payments.
Well, your Medicare is doing that right now.
Okay, Medicare is doing that. All right, taking care of, and I get the two mixed up: Medicare, Medicaid. But one's for poverty programming, one's for old age insurance. Okay, but it's spreading medical costs around so that somebody else pays for it, or there's a bigger pool. That's supposed to be the idea. But I'll throw Social Security out there. But who's paying for Social Security?
Our kids.
Our kids. No, serious. Because the money that we paid into the Social Security system, was that kept for us?
That's right.
No.
No, that got spent. So it's always revolving on the current people paying the previous people. So actually, those of us who are getting Social Security payments, somebody else is paying for that. Because our money that we paid in, long gone. But here's the other problem. Then we have Social Security disability. Does anybody ever pay into Social Security disability? No, it's taken from the pool that was supposed to be for our old age insurance. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. How else are other people benefiting from something that somebody else has to pay for? You've got your illegal immigrants, right? Everybody that comes in here, they are by the way, I think it was the tune of $5 billion for your Afghan refugees that we just flew in here. Now, I'm not against trying to help people and save them from what was going on in that country, and especially if they allied themselves with our military service personnel. Okay, but there's another tab, right? Yeah. Okay.
On Medicare being paid by the next generation down, that generation is not producing much money from their jobs and stuff like that
Yeah.
to keep up.
Yeah. It's not only a wage thing; it's the number of workers, just based upon the ballooning and contracting age of population. There are fewer people today supporting our retirements than there were when we supported our parents' retirements. You know. Okay.
Something else too on that note. If you wanted it so that you had control and had to move out the semi-wealthy, or as they see it, us poor people,
Yeah.
who are on Social Security, like, all you gotta do is stop Social Security.
Sure.
You can't pay your bills anymore.
Yeah.
You move out, you
Exactly.
move in.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
simple, so.
Yeah. By the way, there's also a movement afoot in our government right now to expand the amount of federal land, federally held land. Well, if you're going to expand more federal land, who's got to give up land? The private citizens. Okay. But so there's just a few examples, but groups of people are being promised today many things at someone else's expense. The king of Babylon did it after he conquered the country. And today it's just flipped. It's being done in our country before we are conquered, all right, to gain support. All right. All right, well, our last paragraph now, paragraph number 4, verses 13 through 16. And this is kind of the ironic part, too. Gedaliah thinks it won't happen to him. Verses 13 through 16. Gedaliah thinks it won't happen to him. So, first part here is my introductory thought. As the takers come from surrounding lands, we see they are not only coming for the free houses and land, but there are some who are going to come for political power too. So verse 13. Johanan, son of Kareah, and all of the army officers still in the open country came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. So these are guys that deserted, they ran away from their posts and whatnot. They're still alive, and now that he's governor, they all come to him at Mizpah. And they said to him, don't you know that Baalis, king of the Ammonites, has sent Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, to take your life? But Gedaliah, son of Hakim, did not believe them. Then Johanan, son of Kareah, said privately to Gedaliah in Mizpah, let me go and kill Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and no one will know it. Why should he take your life and cause all of the Jews who are gathered around you to be scattered and the remnant of Judah to perish? But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, said to Johanan, son of Kareah, don't do such a thing. What you are saying about Ishmael is not true. By the way, chapter 41, what do you think Ishmael does to Gedaliah? Comes to him, I think, with 10 men, and they all got knives. They stab him to death. Okay? But that's next chapter. Okay, fourth and last paragraph of discussion questions now. Where in America today can we see leaders forming alliances with our enemies in order to gain or keep power?
China.
China, that's right. And who are some of our leaders that are forming alliances with Chinese officials? I'm sorry?
President and his son.
Okay, the president and his son. All right, you have got to wonder about how the then Vice President Biden's son wound up on the boards of Chinese companies and has $1 million payments being sent to him. And now you've got to wonder that now that his father's the president, and basically the president's son has taken up an art career, and he can't paint any better than your pastor can. I can't even do a good-looking stick figure. And he's selling his paintings to anonymous bidders for tens of millions of dollars per painting. What do you think's going on there, people? That's money laundering. It is, and bribery, guaranteed. This is just the way they're taking their payments now. Yeah, because of course he wouldn't want to be serving on the board of a Chinese company now. All right, because they've already been revealed for that. But of course nothing happened. Where else can you see leaders getting in bed with the enemy to get or keep power?
Media.
Okay, the media. The media and the media moguls, they are actually, the mainstream media and also Hollywood, they will not go against China as far as saying negative things about them and making the Chinese government look negative. And even when you have a sports star who says something negative about China, what are they often doing right shortly thereafter? They're apologizing and saying they were wrong. Those people are under pressure. They are getting in bed with China and markets and things like that. It's happening. It's happening.
What about pharmacies?
Okay, pharmacies. Okay, so here's a good one. How is it that you can have all kinds of illegal fentanyl? By the way, much of it, isn't it made in China, I think? Illegal fentanyl, much of it made in China, coming up through South America and across our southern border. How is that making its way in the United States and being very cheap and killing all kinds of people here, overdosing on it illegally, okay, illegal drugs? How can that all be so cheap, and yet the stuff that's supposed to be healthy for Americans and save our lives is so freaking expensive? If you don't have a health insurance plan, you can't secure it. See, somebody's in bed with the enemy. They are. Yeah. And by the way, do you know where most of the ingredients for our pharmaceuticals are manufactured? China and India. Okay. So anyway, other places where we've got leaders getting in bed with the enemy. How about General Milley? He backstabbed him. He called the Chinese government and said, if the United States and Donald Trump are going to attack you, I will give you the heads up first. What do you think General Milley got for that? We have no idea. Okay. But all I'm going to say is, those are just some prime examples of where people in our own government are getting in bed with the enemy for power and money. All right, it's happening today. It happened back then, and Gedaliah is the prime example of it. Even in a ruined country, he's been put in charge over what's left of a country, and he's still right in bed with the enemy. Okay. Now, who did Gedaliah agree to work with to be put in power? Well, who's he answered to? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And what do all of the surviving officers from the Jewish army, what do all of those surviving officers come to warn Gedaliah about? What have they uncovered? What do they know about? There's a murder plot to take him out. All right. And what did Gedaliah think when he heard about a plot to murder him when they reported it? No, they're not going to do that. Silly generals. All right. So then, what does Johanan then offer to do for Gedaliah? Yeah, I'll go kill him for you. All right. By the way, if I was Gedaliah and I've got a loyal officer and there's an enemy that might be plotting my murder, I might say, well, better safe than sorry, right? And he said, I'll do it in such a way nobody will connect it to you. Okay. So in response, what does Gedaliah say to him? Last verse.
Don't do such a thing.
Yeah. Don't do such a thing. What you are saying about Ishmael is not true. So what false assumption is Gedaliah making? Yeah, loyalties. And also, all of the poorer people in the land are coming in because they can get what? All the stuff. So if people who are at the bottom of the economic tier in a country are coming in and they're coming from other nations to get and get and get, wouldn't it be a false assumption for this man to think that other people that are political are coming to do the same thing? See, it's almost like a Wild West free-for-all in Judah right now because the whole society has been torn down, upset, everything's in a state of flux. All right? Now, so basically the false assumption is he's thinking, oh, it can't happen to me. Oh, it can happen to any of us. It can happen to Gedaliah, and it will. Why do you think we have leaders in Washington, D.C. making decisions that clearly weaken America as a nation? Why would they do this? And I'll just throw out some examples. After becoming completely energy independent and driving down the world price of oil, and we become the world's largest exporter of gas and natural gas and oil, why would we shut down all those pipelines? Why would our government leaders do that and make us dependent upon foreign oil once again and then plead with them to please lower the price? Why would they do that? They're greedy, for one.
Something's in it for them.
What's that?
Something's in it for them.
Something's got to be in it for them. All right? Got to be in it for them. Why, when the Democrats are saying in Washington right now that we have to have a $3.5 trillion spending plan to invest in infrastructure, which, by the way, is not infrastructure. Most of it is not bridges and roads. It's social programming in this country. Why would they want to go further into debt to pay for all that when they're letting what it should be on track 2 million illegal immigrants this year alone into this country, and we're going to pay for all of them? Does that make any sense?
When you can't pay your debt, they can take over.
What's that?
When you can't pay your debt, they can take over.
Sure, sure. But what we've got to wonder is who's going to take over America, not just us. See? Something is going on there, and I guarantee you the people in our country that are pulling these dirty deals and doing what's not good for America, they believe that no matter how much they flip and turn on America, what's the false assumption these people are making?
They're still gonna be in charge.
That they're still going to be in charge. And I guarantee you they won't be. They will not be. Those who have turned on their own people, the ones they did it for and allied themselves with, they're going to turn on them. They will. Okay? So they also make a false assumption. Oh, it won't happen to me. Well, you're going to find out Gedaliah played the same game as many of our leaders in Washington are doing. And it ain't going to pan out. Okay?
I think something else you're gonna see too is our great attitude that we can't be defeated, that we are number one, that by the time they get through with us, we'll be slitting each other's throat.
Yeah, because of the divisions. We're infighting already. Yeah, you got it, Jim. So, and with that thought, our next question is this. What will happen to America once we're weak enough to be taken by a foreign power? Once we're weak enough to be taken, what's going to happen? We will be taken. We will be taken. All right? We will be. Hands down, no question about it. So, on that happy note, I'm going to leave us with a happy note. after all the things that we saw happen to Judah and Jerusalem and King Zedekiah and his whole family being slaughtered before his eyes, the people being put in chains and led out, now go back to Jeremiah the prophet. What confidence can you and I gain as God's people from his experience?
And if we hang in there with the Lord.
We have a protector. We do. God promised Jeremiah that no matter what happened, and Jeremiah, remember, man, it was some chapters ago. Do you remember when Jeremiah freaked out? And he says, Lord, they're going to kill me and all this stuff, and blah, 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 blah. And God basically said, shape up. I am going to protect you. You will suffer, but the worst of the calamities will not touch you. So what Jeremiah's experience shows us here is the same thing that Psalm 91 says. Psalm 91, Carol.
Yeah, that's right.
Though 1,000 fall on one side of you, though 10,000 fall on the other side of you, if you've made the Lord your refuge, the arrow that flies by day will not touch you. The pestilence will not take you. Okay?
Protect us all night long.
Yep. So what we need to do, what we need to know for sure is this. No matter what's going on in our country,
We're going to be protected.
we need to make God our refuge. He's the only safe place. And by the way, this is a theme I picked up on last night from Mario Murillo at the great revival meeting there in Batavia. He simply said, everybody needs to be warned, and we ourselves need to flee danger. Flee the danger. And if you're going to flee the danger, you have to flee to the safe place. Where's the safe place, people? Jesus. He is where the safety is. All right, that's where we're going to find our refuge, our strength. And by the way, what is a refuge? A refuge is where you go when everything is falling apart around you to be safe. Like a bomb shelter. You can blow up the whole world around you, so to speak, but like in our elementary school. Is Campbell School a bomb shelter as well? I know the school in Dalton and the school in Nunde, that their official bomb shelters with sealed doors and everything else. There's the radioactive signs down there. I've been in the basement. Okay, well then it still is. It's still there. Anyway, point being, let's say a nuclear bomb goes off, but you had some forewarning and got in there. Well, then that's your refuge, and no matter what goes on outside, you're safe inside. The Lord is our refuge. He kept Jeremiah safe through all of this, and not only was Jeremiah kept safe and saved with his life, but God moved the king of Babylon, who'd never laid eyes on Jeremiah, to seek out the prophet named Jeremiah, sent the captain of his own bodyguard, which would be the most trusted man to Nebuchadnezzar, to go find him, and not only to set him free, to take those chains off, but to give him provisions and even a gift, and said, you may go where you want. That's what God can do for us in these times. So people, just make sure Jesus is our refuge. Yep. Go read Psalm 91 again to see what that means to us. Yep. Because in Psalm 91, it's not all pretty. Terrible things happen to people because of their sin. But if we make God our refuge, He'll protect. All right. Well, that's what I've got for us tonight. Does anybody have anything you want to add? Thoughts? Okay. Well, in that case, then, we're going to move to our prayer meeting now. So for everybody that joined us online for this Bible study, we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you're richer and fuller for it. And even as you see how in America today we live in Jeremiah times, you just make the Lord your refuge, and He's going to take care of you like He did Jeremiah. All right? Good night. God bless. We love you. Hope to see you next week or have you tune in. Bye now.